Okay, good morning again, and welcome to our fifth lecture on the introduction to European Union policy. Last week we dealt with the introduction to single markets of the European policy. Now, today we are going to deal with the introduction to European Union competition policy. Okay, we already talked about this European Union competition policy, which we said was an exclusive jurisdiction of the EU. Now we have to talk about how it was developed. The European Union competition policy was one of the most supranational EU policies, because Commission's decisions do not require approval by any other EU body or EU member states. Again, it is non-political and supranational authority. It does involve making highly political judgments. It does not pursue rigorously. It was not pursued rigorously until 1980s. Since 1990s, however, more important rules were introduced. One, the prospects for abuses grew because of the single market. Two, a spirit of economic liberalization grew highly in the 90s. Three, the Commission is more willing to take on powerful global firms to challenge them. And fourthly, global corporations to engage in cross-national measures became more often. Now, the EU principal policy method moves consist of, we talked about this before, the community method, the intensive trans-governmentalism method, the supranational method, and the new mode of governance. This we talked about on the first lecture of this EU policy. Now, we talked also how the development of EU policy competencies came, like when we talked about the direct market. We talked about broader economic development. We talked about social and social-related issues. We talked about justice and home affairs. We talked about the external political relations and security. Okay? Now, since we are talking about the European Union competition law, one of the things that they focused on was antitrust policy. The antitrust policy was for some reasons. One of the reasons was anti-cartel and anti-monopoly provisions has to be curtailed. National competition authorities must investigate any of such practices like anti-cartel or anti-monopoly. So cases involving 3 or more member states plus hardcore cartel remains under the Director General of the Competition's jurisdiction. Then companies are to consult a list of prohibited behaviors. Inside information are often crucial in order to assist them have successful investigation. Most contested competition policy cases, for example, when the EU Commission imposed 2.9 billion record fine to truck cartels. Okay? Then the Article 101 of the Trade Reforming European Union and Article 102 took care of or restrict such practices that are cartel-related or monopolistic practices. So I talked about this before when we did competition law on Article 101 Trade Reforming European Union and Article 102 of Trade Reforming European Union. Article 1 is mostly forbids abuse of dominance, and Article 102 consists of contracts, dubious contracts that is intended to breach competition was prohibited. And this we talked about already in competition law. I refer you back to that lecture and you will see details what happened. Then commissions are also having exclusive authority to approve measures over a certain threshold. They have a worldwide set turnover of 5 billion, I think. Then most requests to merge are granted by the Commission. The parties can appeal to the General Court of any decision that they don't agree with. Merger's decision can be highly politicized. For example, there was EU bloc in case Alstom Siemens rail merger due to serious competition concerns. The Alstom Siemens merger and the need for European champion was the argument that was raised in this case. We are going to deal more on this case later as we proceed. Okay? Now, it's kind of rushing this course because we have actually dealt with this in the introduction to European law. I'm only reiterating these courses or these topics in order to show you the relationship between the European policy and the European competition law. Then there was also state aid. Article 101 Trade Reforming European Union and Article 102 Trade Reforming European Union also dealt with state aid. It says that any aid granted by a member state or through state resources in any form whatsoever which distorts or threatens to distort competition by favoring certain undertakings or the production of certain goods shall be incompatible with the internal market. We have also already dealt with this in the competition law, so I refer you back to that. Then we also dealt with the block exemption. The purpose of why block exemption was introduced was to promote the economic development of areas where the standard of living is abnormally low, or to remedy a serious disturbance in the economy, especially during the COVID. We noticed how it was done during the COVID in Eurozone crisis. Yeah. Also, states are required to notify the Commission of any plan to grant or alter state aid. State aid is mostly authorized. Okay? Now, we have talked about most of this when we treated the introduction to European law. The purpose of this course, like I said, is to show you the relationship between the introduction to European policy and the introduction to European law. So today we have dealt with the European Union competition policy, how it was introduced, and here we come again to the end of today's lecture, and we continue next week again with the introduction to European policy again. I wish you a happy weekend, and I see you next week. Bye bye for now.